I can't take my eyes off you. The words hit like a live wire, spoken by a white woman to a black electrician kneeling in her Charlotte mansion. As a skilled tradesman, he's fixed flickering lights and frayed circuits, but he's also endured sidelong glances, whispered slurs, and clients who clutch their purses when he arrives. Her compliment, raw, unexpected, sparks suspicion in a man taught to question kindness. Is it a game, a trap, or something real? This moment ignites a journey through mistrust, courage, and connection, where two souls challenge a world eager to divide them. Will they build something lasting, or will prejudice pull them apart? Dive into this electrifying tale, and don't miss what's next. Subscribe to our channel for the latest stories and share in the comments where you're listening from. Why did she say it? Stick around to uncover the truth. The chandelier flickered, casting jagged shadows across the polished oak of the Charlotte Mansion's foyer. Aaron Taylor knelt beneath it, his calloused hands steady as he traced the tangle of wires snaking through the antique fixture. At 34, he'd seen enough grand homes to know their secrets. Old wiring, older pride. His toolkit lay open, a soldier's arsenal of screwdrivers and voltage testers, each tool an extension of his craft. The air smelled of wax polish and wealth, the kind that clung to the walls like a second skin. Aaron's focus was ironclad, his breath even, until a voice sliced through the hum of his work. I can't take my eyes off you. Aaron froze, screwdriver poised mid-turn. The words landed like a misfired spark, sharp and uninvited. He glanced up, meeting the gaze of Sophia Green, the homeowner, leaning against the doorway. Her auburn hair caught the chandelier's glow, and her green eyes held no trace of jest. She stood there, poised in a cream silk blouse, her presence as effortless as the house itself. Aaron's jaw tightened. Was this a game? A flirtation from a woman bored in her gilded cage? He'd heard worse. Clients who'd toss compliments like coins, expecting gratitude or something uglier. Thanks, he muttered, voice clipped, and turned back to the wires, his pulse betraying his calm. Sophia didn't move. Her words hadn't been a line, but a confession, raw and unguarded. She'd watched Aaron work, his hands moving with a quiet precision that felt like art, and the thought had slipped out before she could cage it. Now, seeing his shoulders stiffen, she sensed she'd misstepped, but couldn't pinpoint how. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken questions. Aaron's mind churned. He'd grown up in Charlotte's working-class corners, where trust was a currency hard-earned. His mother, a house cleaner with hands rougher than his, had taught him to read people. Clients who'd lock their jewelry boxes when he arrived, neighbors who'd cross the street at dusk. Sophia's world, with its marble floors and abstract art, was a galaxy apart. Her compliment felt like a spotlight, and Aaron had spent his life avoiding those. He twisted a wire nut into place, grounding the circuit, and cleared his throat. Loose connection, he said, nodding at the chandelier. Should hold now. I'll check the breaker. Sophia nodded, her fingers brushing the doorframe. You always explain things so clearly, she said, her tone warm but not pushy. Aaron's eyes flicked to her, searching for a hidden motive. Clarity was his shield, a way to prove his worth beyond the assumptions tied to his skin. It's the job, he replied, packing his tools with deliberate care. He stood dusting his jeans, his 6-foot frame filling the space without trying. Sophia stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the hardwood. Do you ever take a break? There's a coffee shop nearby. My treat. The offer hung between them, simple yet loaded. Aaron's gut twisted. Coffee? With a client? He'd heard stories. Tradesmen lured into personal lines only to be burned by gossip or worse. His mother's voice echoed, keep your head down, do the work. Got another job, he said, half truth, half defense. Appreciate it, though. He slung his toolkit over his shoulder, avoiding her gaze. Sophia's lips parted, but she didn't press. Another time, maybe, she said, her voice soft but steady. As Aaron strode to his truck, the mansion's shadow loomed behind him. The engine coughed to life, and he pulled onto the tree-lined street, the city's hum of familiar comfort. In the rear view, he caught a glimpse of Sophia still at the door, her silhouette framed by light. Why had she said it? Why him? The words, I can't take my eyes off you, looped in his mind, each replay stoking his unease. He'd faced enough judgment to know kindness often came with strings, especially from women like her, whose lives gleamed with privilege he'd never touch. Back at his apartment, a modest one-bedroom above a barber shop, Aaron dropped his keys on the counter. The space was sparse, a second-hand couch, a framed photo of his mother smiling at his trade school graduation. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Thanks for the quick fix. Coffee still on the table? Sophia Green. Aaron stared at the screen, his thumb hovering. A part of him wanted to reply, to test the waters, but caution won. He'd survived by knowing his place, by not chasing mirages. He set the phone face down, the message unanswered, and sank onto the couch. Sophia, meanwhile, stood in her quiet foyer, the chandelier now steady above her. She replayed the moment, her cheeks warming at her boldness. She hadn't meant to unsettle him, only to acknowledge the strength she'd seen. A man who worked like the world depended on his hands. Her life, filled with gallery openings and client dinners, often felt hollow, her designs more admired than understood. Aaron's presence had stirred something, a reminder of what grounded her. But his wariness, the way he'd shut down, left her questioning. Had she overstepped? Misread him? Aaron's thoughts were less forgiving. He lay back, staring at the ceiling's cracked plaster. He'd been called many things, reliable, skilled, even charming by clients who meant well. But can't take my eyes off you? That was new and it rattled him. He'd learned early to navigate a world that saw his blackness first, his talent second. High school teachers who'd steered him to trades over college, bosses who'd overlooked him for promotions, neighbors who'd clutched their bags at the sight of him. Sophia's words didn't fit that script, and that made them dangerous. The city's pulse filtered through his window, car horns, distant laughter. Aaron's fingers grazed his phone, the screen still dark. Reply or ignore. He imagined his mother's raised eyebrow, her voice firm. Don't let anyone play you for a fool. But another voice, quieter, wondered if Sophia was different. He pushed it down. Trust was a risk he couldn't afford, not when every job, every handshake, was a chance to prove he belonged. Sophia, too, wrestled with the moment. She wandered to her studio, a cluttered haven of sketches and fabric swatches. Her latest project, affordable housing designs, lay half-finished on the desk. She picked up a pencil, tracing absent lines, but her mind was on Aaron. His guarded eyes, his steady hands. They'd left an impression she couldn't shake. She typed another message, then deleted it. Patience, she told herself. If he were worth knowing, he'd come around. Aaron rolled onto his side, the couch creaking under him. The text glowed in his memory, an invitation he hadn't accepted. Coffee. Such a small thing. Yet it felt like a threshold. He muttered to the empty room, "Stay focused, man. Don't get caught up." But as sleep pulled him under, Sophia's voice lingered, a spark in the dark, daring him to venture what lay beyond his walls. The morning sun sliced through Charlotte's skyline, glinting off the cracked asphalt of a low-income neighborhood where Aaron Taylor's work boots crunched against gravel. A week had passed since Sophia Green's unsettling compliment, her unanswered text still a ghost in his phone. Now Aaron stood at the edge of a community housing project, his toolkit slung over his shoulder, eyes scanning the row of weathered homes. He'd agreed to join the retrofitting effort, steady pay, good cause. But Sophia's name on the contract had tightened his chest. Her world, her rules, he thought, adjusting his cap. Yet here he was, drawn by necessity and a nagging curiosity he wouldn't name. The site buzzed with activity, hammers clanging, volunteers hauling lumber, the air thick with sawdust and hope. Sophia emerged from a half-finished house, her ponytail dusted with drywall, a clipboard in hand. She spotted Aaron and waved, her smile bright but careful, like someone approaching a wary animal. "Glad you're here," she called, striding over. Aaron nodded, his expression neutral. "Where do you need me?" he asked, voice all business. Sophia gestured to a nearby duplex, its exposed wiring dangling like veins. "Start there. Electrical's a mess." Aaron set to work, his hands moving with practiced ease, stripping insulation, testing circuits. The task grounded him, a tether to the reality he trusted. Work, results, control. But Sophia's presence tugged at his focus. She moved among the crew, her laughter easy with residents, her questions sharp with contractors. Aaron watched her from the corner of his eye, searching for cracks in her earnestness. Was this her stage? A performance for clout? He'd seen do-gooders before, their charity a polished mask for ego. Yet Sophia's hands were smudged with paint, her boots scuffed. She didn't float above the mess, she waded through it. Inside the duplex, Aaron knelt beside a rusted breaker box, his multimeter humming. Sophia appeared at the doorway, wiping sweat from her brow. "How's it looking?" she asked, leaning against the frame. Aaron didn't look up. "Old system, needs a full overhaul to meet code." His tone was clipped, a wall of facts. Sophia nodded, undeterred. "You make it sound simple. That's a gift." Aaron's fingers paused on a wire. Another compliment, another spark he didn't trust. "Just doing my job," he said, twisting a connector with more force than needed. The day wore on, the sun climbing high, baking the lot. Aaron kept his distance, but Sophia seemed determined to close it. At lunch, she approached with a water bottle, offering it like a truce. "You're intense out here," she said, her tone light. "Ever slow down?" Aaron took the bottle, his eyes narrowing. "No time to," he replied, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Bills don't wait." Sophia's smile faltered, sensing the edge in his voice. "Fair enough," she said, backing off. Aaron watched her go, a twinge of guilt flickering, but he smothered it. She didn't get to unsettle him twice. That afternoon, the crew gathered in a dusty community center for a project briefing. Sophia stood at the front, her voice steady as she outlined plans. New wiring, better insulation, designs to make the homes feel alive. Aaron sat in the back, arms crossed, his mind half on the job, half on her. She spoke with fire, but he couldn't shake the question. Why this? Why now? When she opened the floor, Aaron raised his hand, his voice cutting through the hum. "You're spending big on aesthetics. Why not more on structural fixes? Folks need heat, not pretty walls." The room stilled, eyes darting between them. Sophia didn't flinch. "Beauty matters too," she countered. "It's not just walls, it's dignity, a reason to stay. But you're right, we need balance. Let's talk numbers." Her response was firm, not defensive, and Aaron felt a grudging respect. They sparred over budget lines, each point a test. By the end, the room buzzed with ideas, but Aaron's pulse raced. She'd met him head on. No dodge, no patronizing. It threw him. After the meeting, Sophia caught Aaron outside, the sky bruising purple with dusk. "You didn't hold back in there," she said, her breath visible in the cooling air. "I like that." Aaron shifted, his boots scuffing the dirt. "Just calling it like I see it," he said. Sophia studied him, her gaze piercing. "This project's my heart, not a resume. I'm not here to play savior." Aaron's jaw tightened. "Then why me?" he asked, the question sharper than he meant. "You don't know me." Sophia's eyes softened, but her voice held steady. "I know you're good at what you do, and I know you care about this place, same as me." Aaron wanted to argue, to poke holes in her sincerity, but her words landed too cleanly. He looked away, the horizon a blur of rooftops. "I don't trust easily," he said, almost to himself. Sophia nodded, unfazed. "I'm not asking you to. Just keep showing up." Back at his apartment, Aaron paced the small living room, the day's tension coiled in his shoulders. His mother's photo watched from the shelf, her smile both anchor and challenge. He'd grown up dodging assumptions, clients who'd hover while he worked, teachers who'd nudge him toward practical paths. Sophia didn't fit that mold, and that unnerved him. She wasn't cold, wasn't fake, but her world, glossy, connected, felt like a trap waiting to spring. He sank onto the couch, pulling the photo down. "You'd tell me to walk away, Ma," he murmured, "but she's not what I expected." Across town, Sophia sat at her desk, sketches scattered like fallen leaves. The project consumed her, a chance to prove her designs could matter beyond elite showrooms. But Aaron's skepticism gnawed at her. She'd felt his distrust, a wall she couldn't scale. She opened her laptop, pulling up the project roster. His name stared back. Aaron Taylor, lead electrician. She traced it with her finger, wondering what it would take to reach him. Her life, polished on the surface, hid its cracks. Family expectations, industry gatekeepers. Aaron's raw honesty, his refusal to bend, felt like a mirror she wasn't ready to face. Aaron's phone lay on the coffee table, its screen dark. He hadn't answered Sophia's text from last week, and now her words echoed anew. I know you care. He stood, pacing again, the floorboards creaking under his weight. Trust was a gamble, and Aaron played safe. But as he glanced at his mother's photo, her eyes seemed to say, don't hide from what's real. He grabbed his jacket, restless, and stepped into the night, the city's pulse matching his own. Sophia's challenge lingered, a dare to see beyond his walls. He wasn't ready to answer, but for the first time he wondered if he could. The Charlotte sun hung low, painting the community housing site in shades of amber as Aaron Taylor coiled a length of conduit, his hands steady despite the churn in his gut. Days had passed since his tense exchange with Sophia Green, her words, I know you care, still a splinter in his thoughts. Their work on the project had settled into a rhythm, a fragile truce of shared purpose. But Aaron kept his guard up, his trust a currency too precious to spend. The duplexes around him hummed with progress, their skeletal frames now fleshed with drywall and hope. Yet he couldn't shake the sense that Sophia's sincerity was a mirage, too bright to be real. Sophia, meanwhile, sensed the distance Aaron maintained, a silent moat she couldn't cross. She'd invited him to her downtown office to review new lighting designs, hoping to bridge the gap. Aaron arrived, his work boots leaving faint dust on her polished floor. The space was a blend of chaos and elegance, sketches pinned to corkboards, fabric swatches spilling from shelves, a single orchid thriving in a clay pot. Sophia stood at a drafting table, her sleeves rolled up, gesturing to a blueprint. These fixtures, she said, her voice animated, they're energy-efficient, warm-toned. They'll make the homes feel alive. Aaron nodded, studying the plans with a craftsman's eye. Good specs, he said, his tone measured. I'll need to check the wiring capacity. Her enthusiasm softened the air, and for a moment Aaron felt the pull of her vision, but he pushed it down, wary of its glow. Their discussion stretched into the evening, the city's skyline twinkling beyond the windows. Sophia's questions were sharp, her ideas bold, and Aaron found himself answering with more than his usual brevity, drawn into her orbit despite himself. As he left, her voice followed him. You're making this real, you know. He glanced back, her silhouette framed by the office's soft light, and muttered, just wiring. But the words felt hollow, her belief in him a weight he wasn't ready to carry. That weight grew heavier the next day when Aaron was tasked with delivering updated blueprints to a hotel across town, where Sophia was attending a gala for her firm's elite clients. He parked his truck in the service lot, the blueprints tucked under his arm, and approached the glittering venue. Through a towering glass window, he saw her, Sophia, radiant in a sapphire gown, her laughter mingling with the clink of champagne flutes. She moved among a sea of white faces, men in tailored suits, women dripping in jewels. Her ease a stark contrast to the dusty worksite they shared. Aaron's breath caught, not from her beauty, but from the chasm it revealed. This was her world, polished, exclusive, untouchable. He'd been a fool to think otherwise. His grip tightened on the blueprints, the paper crinkling under his fingers. She wasn't the woman who'd smudged paint on her hands, who'd argued budgets with him. She was one of them, playing progressive for applause, and he'd let himself soften, let her words creep past his defenses. Aaron left the blueprints with a concierge, his jaw set, and drove back to his apartment, the city's lights blurring into streaks of betrayal. By morning, he'd stopped answering her texts, her calls, her emails, a wall rebuilt, taller than before. Sophia felt the shift like a sudden frost. At the worksite, Aaron's absence was a void, his usual spot by the breaker boxes empty. She texted again, "Everything okay? Need you on the duplex." No reply. Her stomach knotted. Had she pushed too hard, said too much? She threw herself into the project, directing volunteers, But her mind replayed their last meeting, searching for the misstep. Aaron's quiet intensity, his reluctant warmth. Had she misread it all? By noon, she couldn't stand the silence. She drove to another site where he was working, a crumbling rental with flickering lights determined to face him. Aaron was in the basement, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom as he traced a faulty circuit. The air smelled of mildew and copper, the kind of place he knew better than any mansion. Footsteps echoed above, then Sophia's voice, firm but strained. "We need to talk." Aaron's shoulders tensed, but he kept working, his voice flat. "Busy." She descended the creaky stairs, her silhouette sharp against the dim light. "You've been dodging me," she said, stopping a few feet away. "What did I do?" Aaron set down his pliers, his eyes meeting hers, hard and unyielding. "Saw you at that gala," he said, the words like gravel. "All dressed up, right at home with the suits. That's your crowd, not this." He gestured to the damp walls, the exposed wires. Sophia blinked, confusion giving way to hurt. "You think that's who I am? A fake?" Aaron's laugh was bitter. "I think you're playing a part, and I'm not your prop." The accusation hung heavy, her silence a confirmation in his mind. Sophia's hands clenched, her voice low. "I was there for work, not because I wanted to be. You don't know what I'm fighting for." Aaron shook his head, turning back to the circuit. "Don't need to. I know where I stand." Her eyes glistened, but she didn't retreat. "You're wrong about me," she said, then left, her footsteps fading into the hum of the city. Alone, Aaron's hands shook as he wired a new connection, his anger fraying like the cables he'd stripped. He'd seen the truth, hadn't he? Yet her hurt lingered, a splinter he couldn't ignore. At his apartment that night, he sat at the kitchen table, the blueprints from the project spread before him. His mother's photo watched from the shelf, her gaze a quiet rebuke. He'd built walls to survive, but had he misjudged the woman trying to reach him? Sophia, in her studio, paced before a half-finished sketch, her pencil snapping in her grip. Aaron's words had cut deep, exposing a truth she hadn't faced. Her world, however much she fought it, still shaped how others saw her. She opened her laptop, drafting an email to Aaron, her fingers hesitating. "I'm not who you think. Let me prove it." She deleted it, the words too raw. Instead, she pulled up the project plans, her resolve hardening. She'd show him, not with words, but with action. The next day, Aaron overheard a worker at the site, a grizzled carpenter with a cigarette dangling from his lips. "That designer lady? She's just here for the photo ops. Bet she's back to her fancy life by next month." The words sank into Aaron like lead, cementing his choice. He opened his laptop, typing a curt email to Sophia. "I'm out. The project's not for me." He hit send, the click final, like a lock snapping shut. In her office, Sophia read the message, her heart sinking. The city's pulse thrummed outside, indifferent. She stood, gazing at the skyline, and whispered, "I won't give up." Aaron, in his truck, stared at the dashboard, his mother's photo tucked in the visor. Better this way, he told himself. But the lie tasted bitter, and the road ahead felt emptier than ever. The Charlotte air carried a bite, a crisp edge that clung to the crumbling brick of the rental complex where Aaron Taylor worked, his breath visible as he wrestled with a corroded junction box. Days had passed since he'd severed ties with Sophia Green's housing project, his email a guillotine meant to cut through the tangle of doubt and betrayal. Yet the silence that followed felt less like freedom and more like a hollow echo, her wounded expression haunting him like a shadow he couldn't outrun. Aaron's hands moved with mechanical precision, splicing wires under the dim glow of a work lamp, but his mind was elsewhere, replaying the gala's glittering facade and the carpenter's sneer that had sealed his choice. Across town, Sophia stood in her studio, sketches scattered like fallen leaves, her resolve a flickering flame. Aaron's withdrawal had stung, his accusation that she was a fraud, a gilded imposter, cutting deeper than she'd expected. She'd spent sleepless nights dissecting their clash, her privilege a lens she hadn't fully turned on herself. Determined to bridge the chasm, she drove to Aaron's job site, a dilapidated building slouched under the weight of neglect. The sagging roof and peeling paint mirrored the tension she carried as she stepped from her car, her boots crunching on gravel. Aaron sensed her before he saw her, a shift in the air like a storm approaching. He was in the courtyard, testing a circuit, when Sophia's voice cut through the hum of his tools. "We need to talk." Her tone was firm, stripped of the warmth he'd once found disarming. Aaron straightened, wiping sweat from his brow, his eyes meeting hers with a guarded intensity. "I'm working," he said, turning back to the wires, but she didn't retreat. 5 minutes, she pressed, stepping closer, her shadow falling across his toolbox. Reluctantly, he nodded, leading her to a gnarled oak at the lot's edge, its branches bare against the gray sky. Under the tree, Sophia didn't waste words. "You shut me out because of that gala," she said, her gaze unflinching. "You saw me there and decided I'm a liar. Let me set it straight." Aaron crossed his arms, his silence a challenge. She took a breath, her voice steady but raw. "I was there because my firm demanded it. Clients, contracts, survival. But I hated every second, smiling for people who'd rather I stay in their box. I'm not them, Aaron. I'm fighting to be more, to do work that matters. Like this project." Aaron's jaw tightened, her words stirring the embers of doubt he'd tried to bury. He'd built his life on reading people, spotting the masks they wore. But Sophia's candor felt like a blade, slicing through his assumptions. "You don't get it," he said, his voice low, rough. "I've spent my life proving I'm not what people think. Lazy, dangerous, less. You waltz in, all good intentions, but you're still from that world. How am I supposed to trust you?" Sophia's eyes softened, but she didn't flinch. "I don't expect you to trust me blind," she said, "but I'm not here to save you or use you. Meeting you, it woke me up. I've been blind, Aaron, living in a bubble, and I didn't see until you challenged me. I've had to fight too. Not like you, but in my way. My family, my industry. They want me to play their game, marry their choice, design their showpieces. I'm done with that." Her confession hung between them, fragile as the autumn leaves skittering across the ground. Aaron's hands flexed, his mind racing. He'd grown up in a neighborhood where survival meant knowing who stood with you and who'd turn. His mother's lessons, guard your heart, earn your place, had kept him safe, but they'd also kept him alone. Sophia's words cracked that armor, revealing a woman not unlike him, wrestling with a world that demanded conformity. "You're saying you get it," he said, his tone softer but still edged. "But you don't know what it's like to walk in my skin." "I don't," she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. "But I'm trying to learn. When I was 12, my art teacher said my sketches were too bold for a girl like me. My parents wanted a debutante, not a designer. I clawed my way here, and still, I'm proving myself every day. You're not the only one who's tired of being judged." Aaron's gaze flickered, her vulnerability a mirror to his own. He thought of his high school counselor, a man who'd smiled as he steered Aaron to trade school, saying, "College might not suit you." The memory burned, but Sophia's fight felt real, a parallel he hadn't expected. The wind stirred, carrying the scent of damp earth. Aaron shifted, his boots scuffing the dirt. "I thought you were using me to feel better about yourself," he said, the admission heavy. "Like I was your cause." Sophia shook her head, her eyes fierce. "You're not a cause. You're a man who builds things, who sees what others miss. That's why I want you on this project, not for me, but for what we can do together." Her words landed like a spark on dry tinder, igniting something Aaron couldn't name. He looked away, the city's hum a distant pulse. Trust was a leap, and he'd never been one to jump. But Sophia's honesty, her willingness to stand here, exposed, shifted the ground beneath him. "I don't know if I'm ready," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, her expression steady. "Then just think about it. The project needs you, I need you. Not to fix me, but to build something real." As Sophia walked back to her car, Aaron watched her go, her silhouette sharp against the fading light. He returned to the junction box, his hands resuming their work, but his mind was a storm. Her story, her fight, challenged everything he'd assumed. She wasn't the untouchable heiress he'd painted. She was a woman carving her path, flawed but fierce. He thought of his mother, her photo a talisman in his truck, her voice urging caution, but also courage. That night in his apartment, Aaron sat at his small kitchen table, the project's blueprints spread before him. The lines and measurements blurred as he replayed Sophia's words. He opened his laptop, her email still in his inbox, the one he'd answered with a cold farewell. His finger hovered over the reply button, then stilled. Trust wasn't a switch he could flip, but doubt wasn't a verdict either. He closed the laptop, standing to pace the worn floorboards. Across town, Sophia sat in her studio, a blank sketch pad open, her pencil idle. Aaron's pain had been a mirror, reflecting the gaps in her understanding. She'd meant to reach him, but had she pushed too far? She pulled up the project's roster, his name a quiet anchor. Aaron Taylor, lead electrician. She traced it, whispering, "Come back." The city's lights flickered outside, and for the first time she felt the weight of what she was asking. Not just his skill, but his faith. Aaron stepped onto his balcony, the night air cool against his skin. The skyline shimmered, a map of dreams and divides. He wasn't ready to leap, but he was ready to look. And that, for now, was enough. The Charlotte dusk draped the community housing site in a soft violet haze, the skeletal homes now cloaked in fresh siding, their windows glinting with promise. Aaron Taylor stood atop a ladder, securing a porch light, his hands deft as they threaded wires through a junction box. Sophia Green's plea under the oak tree had lingered, her raw honesty prying open a door he'd long kept bolted. He'd returned to the project, not with blind trust, but with a willingness to test the ground she'd offered. The work, tangible, measurable, steadied him. Yet Sophia's presence, now a constant, stirred a current he couldn't ignore. Sophia moved through the site with purpose, her clipboard swapped for a paint roller as she coated a community center's walls. Her laughter rang out, mingling with the chatter of volunteers, and Aaron caught himself glancing her way, her smudged jeans and fierce focus a far cry from the gala's polished veneer. Their collaboration had found a rhythm. Aaron rewired homes, ensuring safety. Sophia designed spaces that breathed warmth. Late afternoons blurred into evenings, their shared tasks forging a bridge where words had once faltered. Yet doubts gnawed at Aaron. At a break, he sat on a crate, sipping water, when a friend from his old neighborhood, Marcus, dropped by. "Heard you're tight with that designer," Marcus said, his tone teasing but pointed. "She's just passing through, man. Don't get played." Aaron's grip tightened on the bottle, his friend's warning echoing his fears. He'd let Sophia in, but what if she was a fleeting spark, her ideals fading when the project ended? He brushed it off with a shrug, but the seed of caution took root. Sophia faced her battles. At her family's uptown estate, her mother, Evelyn, cornered her over dinner, her voice sharp as cut glass. "This electrician, you're risking our name for a fling." Sophia's fork stilled, her jaw tight. "It's not a fling. He's my partner in this work." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "He's a liability. You're naive if you think this ends well." The words stung, but Sophia held her ground, her defiance fueled by the homes she and Aaron were building, proof of something real. Back at the site, their partnership deepened through small moments. One evening, they stayed late, painting the community center's interior, the air thick with the tang of latex and possibility. Sophia, balancing on a stool, swiped her roller too wildly, splattering paint across Aaron's cheek. She froze, then burst into laughter, her eyes dancing. "Oops," she said, unapologetic. Aaron raised an eyebrow, dipping his brush and streaking her arm with a deliberate blue stripe. "Payback," he said, a grin breaking through his usual reserve. Their laughter echoed, the room a canvas of their ease. The playfulness gave way to quiet as they cleaned up, the center's bare bulbs casting long shadows. Sitting on the floor, paint cans scattered around, Sophia handed Aaron a coffee, her fingers brushing his. "You're different here," she said, her voice soft. Less guarded. Aaron sipped, the warmth grounding him. "Work's easier than people," he admitted. "But you're not what I thought." Her smile was small, knowing. "Good. I'm not trying to be anyone's idea of me." Their conversation turned personal, a slow unspooling of truths. Aaron shared a memory of his first job, a client who'd followed him room to room, suspicious of theft. "Taught me to keep my head down," he said, his voice low. Sophia listened, then spoke of her rebellion. sneaking sketches under her bed as a teen, defying her parents' vision of a society wife. I wanted to build something that mattered, she said. This project, it's that. Aaron's chest tightened, her words a mirror to his hunger for purpose. But the world outside their bubble loomed. At a hardware store run, Aaron overheard volunteers whispering about a local blog post. Designer's pet project or PR stunt? The words paired with a photo of him and Sophia at the site twisted his stomach. Was their work, his work, being reduced to a headline? He kept it from Sophia, but the fear that their partnership could be warped by others' lenses gnawed at him. Marcus's warning echoed. Don't get played. Sophia sensed Aaron's unease. His silence is heavier than before. She pushed through, inviting him to review plans over coffee. Their meeting's now a ritual. One night, under a star-strewn sky, they walked the site, the home silent witnesses to their labor. Aaron stopped by a half-built porch, his voice tentative. I keep waiting for the catch, he said, for you to walk when this gets hard. Sophia turned, her eyes fierce. I'm not going anywhere. It's worth fighting for. Her certainty, unguarded, cracked something in Aaron. A wall he hadn't known was crumbling. The moment came unbidden. They were back in the community center, sealing paint cans, the air heavy with unspoken tension. Sophia, reaching for a rag, stumbled, and Aaron caught her arm, steadying her. Their eyes locked, the space between them charged. She didn't pull away, and neither did he. Slowly, deliberately, he leaned in, their lips meeting in a kiss that was less fire and more promise. A quiet vow forged in shared struggle. When they parted, Sophia's smile was shy, and Aaron's eyes soft. Didn't see that coming, he murmured. She laughed, light and free. Good, keeps it real. But reality intruded swiftly. The next morning, Aaron's phone buzzed with a text from a coworker, a link to another blog post. Designers diversity play? The article spun their work as a calculated move, his role a token gesture. Aaron's jaw clenched, the kiss's warmth overshadowed by dread. Was this what their partnership would become? A story for others to twist? He met Sophia at the site, her face bright until she saw his expression. What's wrong? She asked, her hand grazing his. Aaron hesitated, then showed her the article. Her eyes darkened, but her voice was steel. They don't get to define us. We know what this is. Aaron wanted to believe her, but the weight of scrutiny pressed hard. At his apartment that night, he sat on the couch, his mother's photo a silent sentinel. The blog's words looped in his mind, a reminder of the world's hunger to judge. Yet Sophia's defiance, her hand in his, felt like an anchor. He picked up his phone, scrolling to her last message. We're stronger than their noise. He typed a reply, then deleted it, his heart caught between hope and fear. Sophia in her studio sketched a new design, a community space with open doors, her pencil strokes bold. Aaron's kiss lingered, a spark she hadn't anticipated, but the blog post had shaken her too. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be smooth, but she'd meant what she'd said. She wasn't leaving. She pinned the sketch to her board, a vision of what they could build, and whispered, We'll prove them wrong. Aaron stepped onto his balcony, the city's pulse a steady drum. The stars above seemed closer, their light a challenge to the darkness below. He wasn't sure what lay ahead, but for the first time he wanted to find out. With her. The Charlotte skyline shimmered under a late afternoon haze, its glass towers indifferent to the churn of the community housing site below. Aaron Taylor knelt beside a newly wired panel, his hands steady as he secured a breaker, but his thoughts were a tangle of static. The kiss with Sophia Green, a fragile bridge built in the community center's quiet, had shifted something in him, a spark of hope now shadowed by the blog post's venom. Its words, branding their work a diversity play, clung like damp rot, and Aaron felt the world's eyes tightening around them. The site hummed with activity, saws whining, volunteers laughing, but the air carried a new weight, a scrutiny he couldn't shake. Sophia, across the lot, directed a team hanging drywall, her voice clear but strained. Their partnership, once a private rhythm, was now public, their shared glances and easy banter drawing whispers. At a coffee run, Aaron overheard a worker mutter, She's parading him for clout. The words stung, but he swallowed them, his jaw tight. Sophia noticed his quieter moments, the way his eyes darted when cameras appeared, but she pressed forward, determined to keep their work untainted. Yet her battles loomed. At her family's estate, her mother's warnings had escalated to ultimatums. End this or lose our support. Sophia's defiance held, but the cost was mounting. Their public appearances intensified the strain. At a neighborhood meeting, Aaron and Sophia presented plans for the next phase. More homes, a playground, standing side by side. Residents clapped, but a local reporter lingered, her questions laced with insinuation. Is this partnership strategic, Ms. Green? Sophia's smile didn't waver. It's human, she said, her hand brushing Aaron's arm. He nodded, but the reporter's smirk followed him like a shadow. Later at his apartment, Aaron scrolled through social media, finding comments beneath a photo of them. She's slumming it. He's her project. His stomach churned, the words a mirror to his deepest fears. The pressure peaked at a critical funding meeting with the project's biggest donor, Charles Bradley, a real estate tycoon with a penchant for control. The venue, a sleek uptown conference room, gleamed with polished mahogany and power. Aaron attended at Sophia's insistence, his work boots a quiet rebellion against the suits around him. Bradley, a man with a handshake like a vice, greeted Sophia warmly, but eyed Aaron with a cool appraisal. As Sophia pitched the project's expansion, her slides vibrant with renderings of homes, Bradley interrupted. Your electrician's visibility, he said, his voice smooth as oil. It's distracting. Our investors prefer a certain image. Aaron's fist clenched under the table, his pulse a drumbeat. Sophia's eyes flashed, but she kept her tone even. Aaron's expertise drives this project. His presence is non-negotiable. Bradley leaned back, his smile thin. Bold choice, but risky. Optics matter. The room grew heavy, the other board members shifting uncomfortably. Aaron felt exposed, a specimen under glass. When the meeting ended, Bradley pulled Sophia aside, his voice low but audible. You're gambling your reputation on him. Rethink it. Aaron, gathering his notes, caught every word, his pride a raw wound. Outside in the parking lot, Sophia caught up to Aaron, her face flushed. I'm sorry you heard that, she said, her voice fierce. He's wrong. Aaron's eyes were hard, his voice low. He's not the only one thinking it. Maybe I'm dragging you down. Sophia stepped closer, her hand grazing his. You're not. We're in this together. But Aaron pulled back, his fear louder than her conviction. You don't get it, he said. This could cost you everything. Her gaze held his, unyielding. Then let it. You're worth more than their money. That night, Aaron sat in his truck, parked outside his apartment, the engine off. His mother's photo tucked in the visor, watched him, her smile a quiet challenge. He'd faced judgment before, clients who'd questioned his competence, strangers who'd crossed the street. But this was different. The world wasn't just judging him, it was judging them, and the cost could break Sophia's dreams. He thought of her defiance, her hand in his, and wondered if he was strong enough to carry that weight. His phone buzzed, a text from his cousin Jamal. Heard about you and that designer. People talking, watch your back. Aaron's grip tightened, the warning a cold confirmation. Sophia in her studio, paced before a half-finished sketch, her pencil idle. Bradley's words echoed, but her mother's cut deeper, a phone call that morning laced with disdain. You're throwing away your future for a man who'll never fit. Sophia had hung up, her heart pounding, but the doubt lingered. She pulled up a photo from the site, her and Aaron, laughing over a shared toolbox, and traced his smile. She wasn't naive. She knew the road ahead was jagged, but his strength, his quiet fire, made it worth walking. The breaking point came at a major fundraising event, a glittering affair in a downtown ballroom. Aaron and Sophia attended together, a united front, their presence a statement. The crowd buzzed, philanthropists, city officials, media, cameras flashing as they entered. Aaron felt the weight of every stare, his navy blazer a thin shield. Sophia, in a simple emerald dress, squeezed his hand, her warmth a lifeline. But Bradley was there, his influence a shadow over the night. During cocktails, he cornered Sophia, his voice low. Your choice in partners is a liability. Investors are talking. Aaron nearby overheard, his blood boiling. As the event moved to speeches, Sophia took the stage, her voice clear, resonant. This project isn't about optics, she said, her eyes finding Aaron in the crowd. It's about people, families, futures. Aaron Taylor isn't just our electrician, he's the heart of what we're building. I'm proud to stand with him. The room split, some clapped, their applause warm. Others, led by Bradley, stood stone-faced, a few slipping out. Aaron at the back felt his chest tighten, not with fear, but with a fierce pride. She'd chosen him publicly, unapologetically. Outside, under the city's neon glow, Aaron and Sophia stood by her car, the night air cool against their skin. You didn't have to do that, Aaron said, his voice thick. You could have played it safe. Sophia turned, her eyes blazing. Safe's not what I want. I want truth, and that's us. Aaron's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining, a silent vow. But his eyes held a flicker of worry. The world's judgment, a storm on the horizon. Back at his apartment, Aaron stood on his balcony, the city's pulse a steady hum. The event had been a victory, but Bradley's exit felt like a warning shot. He thought of Sophia's speech, her courage a flame he wanted to shield. His phone lay silent, but he didn't need messages to know the whispers were growing. Sophia, in her studio, pinned a new sketch to her wall, a home with open doors, a symbol of their fight. She whispered, "We're not done," her resolve a beacon in the dark. Aaron, under the stars, felt the same fire, knowing the battle was far from over. The Charlotte night buzzed with a restless energy, its streets slick with recent rain, as Aaron Taylor drove through the city, his truck's headlights carving paths through the dark. Charles Bradley's withdrawal of funding had left the community housing project teetering, a wound deepened by a new blog post that branded Aaron a social climber, and Sophia Green a naive idealist. The article's venom, paired with a grainy photo of them at the site, twisted their partnership into a caricature, and Aaron felt the weight of every word. Yet Sophia's speech at the fundraiser, her bold claim of him as the project's heart, had lit a fire in him, a resolve to fight not just for the homes, but for what they'd built together. Sophia, in her studio, pored over budgets, her eyes burning from sleepless nights. The project's survival hinged on replacing Bradley's funds, and she'd proposed a bold solution: a community gala, a grassroots event to rally residents, allies, and small donors. Aaron had agreed, his skepticism tempered by her unyielding belief. They worked relentlessly, Aaron coordinating volunteers to transform a vacant lot into a venue, Sophia designing invitations and rallying local businesses for support. Their days blurred into a frenzy of calls, deliveries, and late-night planning, their partnership a lifeline against the storm. The gala's arrival brought a crisp evening, the lot now aglow with string lights and folding tables, draped in checkered cloth. Aaron stood at the edge, his navy button-up shirt, but his nerves were taut. Residents poured in, families from the housing project, elders with canes, kids clutching balloons, bringing homemade dishes and hope. Sophia, in a simple denim dress, moved among them, her laughter warm as she hugged a grandmother who'd baked cornbread. Aaron watched her, his heart swelling, but the blog's words lingered, a whisper that their unity was a facade. As dusk deepened, the crowd gathered around a makeshift stage, a plywood platform adorned with wildflowers. Aaron took the mic, his voice steady despite the eyes on him. "I used to think my job was just fixing wires," he said, his gaze sweeping the faces before him. "But this project, these homes, it's about connecting people, giving them a place to stand tall. We're not here to be anyone's story. We're here to build futures." The crowd erupted, their cheers a tide that lifted him. Sophia, at the stage's edge, met his eyes, her smile a silent vow. Sophia followed, unveiling her designs, sketches of homes with wide porches, gardens, spaces that echoed the community's spirit. "Every nail, every wall," she said, "carries a story. This is yours." She gestured to the residents, her voice fierce. "We won't let anyone take that away." The applause was thunderous, hands clapping, feet stomping. Erin felt a surge of pride, not just for her, but for them, two people who dared to stand together. The night unfolded with music and laughter, a local band strumming gospel and blues. Kids danced, their shadows flickering under the lights, while volunteers served plates of collards and fried chicken. Erin and Sophia worked the crowd, shaking hands, listening to stories. A mother who'd never had a home of her own, a veteran who'd found purpose in the project. Yet the blog's shadow persisted. Erin overheard a reporter muttering to a colleague, "This is cute, but it's a stunt." His jaw tightened, but he kept moving, refusing to let the cynicism win. Midway through, a group of teens from the neighborhood presented a mural they'd painted, a vibrant collage of hands, tools, and homes. Erin and Sophia stood before it, their shoulders brushing, and he whispered, "They see us." She nodded, her eyes bright. They always did. The moment felt sacred, a testament to what they'd built beyond brick and mortar. But Erin's mind flickered to the budget shortfall, the donors they still needed. Could this night be enough? As the gala wound down, Sophia tallied donations, her pen scratching furiously. Erin joined her at a quiet table, the crowd's hum fading. "We did it," she said, her voice trembling with relief. "Enough to keep going, maybe more." The numbers were a miracle. Small gifts from residents, pledges from local shops, even a few anonymous checks. Erin exhaled, the weight lifting, but not gone. "They showed up," he said, his voice thick. "For us." Sophia's hand found his, her touch grounding. "Because we showed up first." Later, under a canopy of stars, they sat on a bench, sharing a glass of lemonade, the tang sharp on their tongues. Erin's eyes traced the lot, now littered with empty plates and glowing embers. "I thought they'd tear us down," he admitted, his voice low. "The blogs, the suits." Sophia leaned closer, her shoulder against his. "They tried, but we're not their story. We're ours." Erin nodded, her words a balm, but his heart still braced for the next blow. At his apartment, Erin stood by his window, the city's pulse a soft drum. His mother's photo sat on the sill, her smile a quiet affirmation. The gala had been a triumph, but the world's judgment hadn't vanished. It had only paused. He thought of Sophia's fierce gaze, the mural's vibrant hands, and felt a new strength. They'd proven their worth, not to the skeptics, but to each other. Sophia, in her studio, pinned the mural's photo to her wall, its colors a beacon. The night had been more than a fundraiser. It was a declaration. She sketched a new design, a community hub with open doors, her pencil bold. Erin's voice from the stage echoed in her mind, his truth a fire she'd carry. The road ahead was uncertain, but they'd walk it together, unshaken by the noise. Erin stepped onto his balcony, the night air cool against his skin. The stars gleamed, defiant in the city's glow. He wasn't naive. The fight wasn't over. But for now they'd won, and that was enough to keep building. The Charlotte morning unfolded in a soft golden haze, the new community home standing proud under a sky scrubbed clean by dawn. Erin Taylor stood on the porch of one, his work boots scuffed but steady, a clipboard in hand as he checked the final electrical inspection. The gala's triumph had saved the project, its funds breathing life into these houses, but the world's whispers hadn't faded. Erin felt them still, a low hum beneath the city's pulse, yet he carried a new resolve, forged in the fire of Sophia Green's unwavering stand beside him. Their partnership, once a fragile spark, had grown into a beacon, and now they were building not just homes, but a future. Sophia moved through the neighborhood, her sketch pad tucked under her arm, her eyes bright as she greeted residents moving into their new spaces. She and Erin had opened a small office, a converted storefront with creaking floors and mismatched furniture, where his electrical services merged with her design vision. The sign above the door read, "Taylor and Green Studio," a quiet rebellion against the skeptics. Their work focused on the community, offering affordable repairs and custom designs, a testament to their shared dream. But the world pushed back. At a recent job, a client had refused Erin's services, citing reputation concerns tied to the lingering blog posts. The rejection stung, a reminder of the lines still drawn. Aaron shared it with Sophia over coffee, his voice calm but tight. "They're still out there waiting for us to fail." She set her mug down, her gaze fierce. "Then we don't. They don't get to write our ending." Aaron nodded, her fire kindling his own. But he chose his battles now, letting the petty slights slide to focus on what mattered. Their community day was a bold step forward. On a bright Saturday, the studio buzzed with life, elders with flickering outlets, single parents needing patched wiring, all welcomed free of charge. Aaron led a team of volunteers, his hands guiding a teenage apprentice through a socket repair, his patience a quiet legacy. Sophia set up a design booth, sketching kitchen layouts for residents, her laughter blending with the hum of drills. The neighborhood showed up, not as clients, but as family, bringing iced tea and stories, their trust a currency richer than any donor's check. Aaron felt it, a shift from the outsider he'd once been to a man woven into this place's heart. Midday, Sophia unveiled a mural on the studio's wall. Two hands, one calloused, one slender, entwined against a backdrop of homes and stars. "This is us," she said, her voice soft as she met Aaron's eyes. He traced the lines, his throat tight. "You see more than I do," he murmured. She smiled, her hand brushing his. "I see what's true." The crowd clapped, kids snapping photos, and Aaron felt a belonging he'd never known, rooted not in approval, but in purpose. The studio's growth drew attention. A local radio station invited them for an interview, a chance to share their story. Aaron hesitated, the blog's venom still fresh, but Sophia's quiet encouragement, her hand squeezing his before they entered the booth, steadied him. On air, Aaron spoke plainly, his voice a low anchor. "I'm not here for headlines. I want to build things that last. Homes, trust, futures." Sophia leaned into the mic, her tone warm but fierce. "We're not just designing spaces. We're creating places where people belong." The host's questions were gentle, the listeners' calls heartfelt. A mother thanking them, a young electrician inspired by Aaron. The segment aired, sparking new clients, their inbox filling with requests from those who saw their truth. Yet the whispers persisted. At a diner, Aaron overheard a patron mutter, "They're milking the feel-good story." He let it pass, his focus on the studio's next project, a community hub for classes and gatherings. Sophia's sketches envisioned open doors, vibrant walls, and space for the neighborhood's dreams. They worked late, planning over takeout, their laughter a shield against the noise. Aaron, wiring a mock-up for the hub, caught Sophia watching him, her eyes soft. "What?" he asked, a grin tugging his lips. She shrugged playfully. "Just like what I see." He shook his head, warmth spreading through him, their ease a hard-won gift. At his apartment, Aaron stood by his window, the city's lights a constellation of challenges and hopes. His mother's photo sat on the sill, her smile a quiet nod. The world hadn't stopped judging, but he'd stopped measuring himself by its gaze. Sophia's mural, her voice on the radio, the hands they'd shaken, they were proof of something greater. He thought of their kiss, their fights, the homes they'd built, and knew this was no fleeting spark but a foundation. Sophia, in her studio, pinned the hub's final sketch to her wall, its lines bold and open. The radio interview played softly, Aaron's voice filling the room, grounding her. She'd faced her doubts, her family's silence, the industry's sidelong glances. But Aaron's strength, his quiet defiance, made her braver. She whispered, "We're doing this," her pencil tracing a star above the hub's door, a symbol of their shared light. Aaron stepped onto his balcony, the night air crisp against his skin. The skyline gleamed, its towers no longer barriers but markers of a city they were reshaping. He wasn't naive. The road would twist, the whispers would linger. But with Sophia, he was ready to build, not just homes, but a life. The stars above burned bright, and for the first time, Aaron felt they were his to reach. Thank you for joining us on this journey through a spark in the wires, a story of resilience, connection, and defying the odds. We hope Aaron and Sophia's tale sparks something in you, maybe a thought, a feeling, or a new perspective. Share your reflections in the comments. We'd love to hear what moved you. Your support fuels our storytelling, so subscribe to catch our next tale and tell us where you're listening from. Until then, keep building your bridges, and we'll meet again soon with more stories that light up the heart.